Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Latched Mama podcast. It's Melissa here. We are coming to you from the Latched Mama headquarters outside of Midlothian, Virginia. And we are talking about creativity today, which is like one of my favorite topics. It's kind of what's brought us all together with Latched Mama. And we have our resident graphic designer and all things creative. Yeah. Lilah with us today. She makes all of our beautiful graphics. And we're just going to chat. We're going to chat about motherhood and different ways to bring creativity into it.
You're listening to the Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, business owner and tired mom of 5. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, nursing, parenting, and all things motherhood.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for being here. I don't feel like we could have done this like a year and a half ago.
I know.
I feel like you've been on quite the little journey with us, Lilah. It's been nice. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Oh man. So I guess like I've always liked drawing.
Okay.
I remember, like being in kindergarten and first grade, and they would have the like dress up like your future career, and I remember like getting like my mom's big cardigan.
Aww.
And like and being like, I want to be an artist.
That's so
up.
Sweet. Was your mom artistic?
I feel like everybody in my home is a little artistic. My mom, not as much, but I do have like a memory of her painting like flowers all over our furniture. And I actually, this is like, she kind of like laughs at me, but I still have this vase where she took like Mod Podge and like vintage wallpaper and like pasted it on there, and like I still have it.
That is awesome.
But my dad was actually more of the artistic one. Like he used to draw all the time, and I think I probably got it from him. So
you grew up and you got married.
Mm-hmm.
You have one little boy, and tell us about him.
His name's Henry. That's actually like what kind of brought me to Latched Mama. It's actually really kind of funny, sad. But I remember getting to a point where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, like with school, and I was already married. And I remember my mother-in-law goes, well, like what? Like, I really want you to do like what would make you happy. And I was like, man, I've always wanted to go to art school. And so I'm like, I talked to my husband about it, and I was like, I've been thinking about maybe trying to get into art school. And he's like, do it. Like, yeah. I totally think you should do it. So I spent all this time like building up like a portfolio, and I'm like, I'm just going to try. And I applied to VCU art school.
And this was after Henry was born.
This is before.
Okay.
And I got in, and I got my acceptance letter. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, at the time I was like,
do people go to art school thinking they're going to be like artists? Like what do they think they're going to be like in terms of like income on the other side?
There's a lot of different things you can do. When I went in, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna dream big. I'm going to be a Disney animator.
Holy moly, you shot for the
for the moon.
I love it.
And but the sad thing is that like I literally like got my acceptance letter, and I think it was like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I think I might be pregnant.
I think that's great. It's so funny though, because we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about how creativity ebbs and flows a little bit through pregnancy and early motherhood.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. We can keep. Okay, you finish your story though.
Oh no, it's fine.
So then you had Henry.
Yeah, then I had Henry. Well, like, and I, when I found I was pregnant, my husband was like over the moon, but I cried because I'm like, I can't go to art school now. And he's like, you can totally go to art school. Like, there's no reason why you can't go. And I went through for like the first semester, and I remember being there, and like, you kind of get that feeling like this is not right. Like, not like that it wasn't cool and that I didn't learn a lot of stuff. But I remember being like, feeling like I know that if I do this, I'm going to be like $30,000 in debt. Yeah. And I just had this like feeling like, man, I would hate to like in 18 years have my kid be like, Mom, I want to go to art school, and have
Yeah.
me be like, I can't afford to send you.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up deciding not to go back, and I was heartbroken about it. But like my husband was always like, this doesn't mean that you can't do art, and if you change your mind, like you can go back. So he was always very like encouraging about
Yeah.
that. But I remember at the time just being like, I don't think this is the right time. So
But then
I
you
ended up
found
dropping.
us.
Yes.
Which is like an amazing gift we got. I don't feel like you originally did you originally start doing art with us? It's all such a blur.
No, it's funny. Like I remember I found Latched Mama on Facebook, and
Okay.
and it was that ad with the one who, it was almost kind of like a Dr. Seuss ad where she's like, places you can breastfeed.
Oh yeah.
And I remember thinking it was really cute. And so that's actually, I found Latched Mama, and I like bought like my first shirt. I think the first time I bought was like World Breastfeeding Week.
Okay. And Henry was teeny tiny then, right?
Teeny. Yeah, he wasn't. When I first started working here, he was like 6 months old.
Wow. And he
Yeah.
came with you.
Yep.
Sweet little Henry.
Yeah.
He learned how to like crawl here.
Yes,
He started
and walk.
exploring.
And walk. I actually have a video. It popped up like on my feed the other day. It was like literally I don't know how many, it must have been like 2 years ago, like a few days ago. And it has this like, it's like a Fallon is like, come here. And he's like walking over to her. And actually the funny thing is like I was working on something, and I think he'd been walking all day. And everyone's like, yeah, he's been walking all day. And I'm like, I missed it.
Oh, I love it though, because it's like not to like toot our own horn in terms of what we've created here, but it's such a great lesson in the fact that like eventually, I mean, you were able to find your way. Like, you were able to bring your baby to work and slowly transition into more creative role here. And I mean, I don't want to say you had the best of all worlds, but I mean, in some ways you got to be, creative with your baby in tow and find, that really important aspect that we're learning is a very important aspect in everybody's life, whether you feel creative or not. So like Brene Brown has this thing where she says that there are no like not creative people and creative people. Like everybody has some form of creativity.
Yeah.
And that is how we connect with others, and that's how we make our impact into the world. I know for me, a lot of people lose creativity on the other side of pregnancy. So like they have their baby and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, like this is so overwhelming. For me, it comes creativity disappears a little bit during pregnancy and then comes back like full force, like ocean waves afterwards, which is why Latched Mama came about. I had no part in designing clothes in the sense that like I wasn't supposed to design clothes, but after pregnancy I was like, heck yeah, I can do anything.
Yeah.
I just had a baby in my bonus room. I can I can
This
make
is
clothes.
nothing
Yeah,
after growing
absolutely.
a baby.
But it's so interesting because like I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about like what happens when you have like a graphic that hits, or what happens when, I think somebody just got a tattoo of one of your
cool.
drawings, like really, really cool moments where that you're leaving an impact on, you're putting yourself out there, because I feel like it's a form of vulnerability in some ways.
Yeah.
And then people embrace it. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's there's definitely, it's funny because I know every time, like Sarah's the one who will like post the like we usually coordinate together. We have like our own little channel, and we'll talk like, hey, what do you think we should do? Like and sometimes we'll be inspired by things that we talk about like on our calls or in the office or something, and we'll be like, hey, like maybe maybe you said, oh, this happened to me this morning, and we'll be like, oh, well, let's do something about like mom shaming or something like that, like to encourage people. So we get inspired like by that. Like I remember there was one, like we were telling a joke, and I think it was Corey was talking about like moms like saying, oh yeah, my baby is like 75 months old.
Yeah.
And so we've decided to make like, I just jokingly was like, I made this little silly little doodle that wasn't even like, I think it took me like 3 minutes, and I just put it in the Slack channel as just like a joke, and they're like, and Sarah's like, we're gonna use that.
That's awesome. I mean, it's really interesting how much, we can drop factoids all day long, and we can drop statistics, and there's other brands that do that, but it's really interesting when you combine that with a graphic or an image or something that's even a little bit more creative and a little bit more connecting to others, like what it can do in terms of just inspiration and stuff throughout the community.
Yeah. Actually, like, kind of talking about vulnerability, actually, the to date, I know it seems weird that I like obsessively check, but as soon
No,
as
I
like
love
Sarah
it.
posts something, I'm
Yeah.
just like, did it do okay? Are people accepting it? And one thing that kind of brings me some joy is that currently to date, the one that's done the best is actually a picture I drew of me and my mom from the day I was born, and I decided to use. So it's a picture of my mom holding me as like a day old.
Aww.
And she, and actually for Mother's Day, I actually had it like professionally printed and sent to her.
Oh,
But it makes me happy that that's the one that's like done the best.
Cool. what is drawing, and I mean, whether it's for us or whether it's like recreationally or on the other side of work and stuff, like what do you feel like it gives you as like a mother or a human in general?
Well, I think a lot of things. Like, I think in the beginning, you know, like as a child, you, I think you kind of want to copy your parents. And like I said, my dad was very like into art, and he actually unfortunately passed away when I was very young. He had brain cancer, and it kind of, I remember he would like leave and do, cause he would have to go to, we lived in North Carolina at the time, and he would have to go to Chapel Hill for days on end. Mm-hmm. And one of the little things that we did to stay kind of connected is I remember he took my Beauty and the Beast tape, and I wish I knew where this was. And I think my mom, I might like ask my mom if she can see if she can find it. But he, while he's away, he's like, I'm going to draw you a picture of Belle. And he actually drew me a picture of Belle while he was getting chemotherapy. And so, unfortunately, he passed away when I was 5. And it kind of became like this kind of thing that I did to still feel like connected to him. Because, like, losing a parent is one of the reasons it's so hard, besides like the obvious, is that you kind of feel like you lose like a part of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I remember always feeling like, you know, this is how I can kind of keep my dad alive, by like cultivating this thing. And so, you know, I drew all the time. I would get in trouble at school.
Because you were drawing instead of.
Yeah. My, I hate using this word, but my stepfather, he's awesome. And, your
bonus dad.
Yes, my bonus dad. I like that better. He's great. I remember he would get like emails from my teachers being like, Rocky, Lilah was drawing in class today.
But it was probably how you, like you just said, you felt connected to your dad, and you dealt with your grief, and it's such a beautiful thing how creativity can not only, I guess, connect us with others, but connect us with the sides of ourselves that, you know, do feel more vulnerable or do feel like we have something to offer that may not be, you know, the same as, I don't know, like friendship or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just such a beautiful thing that we can put, you know, kind of into the world. Does Henry draw at all?
He started to. I've always like tried to encourage him to. Because like my mom still has like my first drawing, and I apparently was like 1, and it's like a circle with like 2 legs, and it's like, this one's mommy, this one's daddy, this one's Lilah. Aww. And I wanted to have something like that with him. And he doesn't like, he does draw, but it's still kind of like scribbles right now. But lately he's really gotten into coloring. I got him a Blue's Clues coloring book the other day, and I bought a bunch of markers, and I was like, do you want to color with mommy? And he's like, yeah. And he's gotten coloring, and he gets very excited. And so now like I'm totally that parent. Like I have like all his art on our refrigerator.
It's so funny because you don't know what to do with it, especially, I mean, I have so many children now, but like they make all the art, and it's like, oh, I just want to declutter, but like, look at this. Like, this is really cute. That was his first stick person. But then when you have 5 kids first stick people, it's like, I mean, who's is whose? And, you know, like, what am I supposed to do with these? But we've had great success. It's interesting. Like, I mean, I definitely want to talk about creativity and motherhood, but it's interesting to watch it in kids because I have a 9-year-old who can get worked up emotionally, but he has found that like art and coloring are things that like completely balance him out.
Oh, that's
and
great.
It's really cool because he's homeschooled, and I'm not saying that creativity is not celebrated in the public school system or whatever, but he knows that like when he needs quiet time and screens aren't an option, you know, that he can go create and that he can color and that he can draw and stuff. And it's been really, really cool watching it happen because there's not any outside influence that, hey, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Or, you know, dude, what, like you're Ninjago or you're not Naruto. The guy who eats ramen. Naruto. Thanks. Thanks. Your Naruto characters do not look anything like the way that they're supposed to. But you know, there's nobody saying that. And he's like in this beautiful creative space where, you know, he's seeking approval from me, but I don't know what freaking Naruto is. So, I mean, I just tell them
anime.
that I just tell them that they look beautiful and it's great. But it's so interesting how quickly creativity can get shut down too.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
that's what I think is such a struggle sometimes. It's almost like vulnerability in the sense that like if you get shut down enough and if you get closed down enough, suddenly you're scared to put it out there. And suddenly, you know, it's this thing where we all have it, whether it's cooking, whether it's decorating, whether it's music, whether it's drawing. You know, there's so many different ways to cultivate creativity.
Yeah.
But in so many ways, it especially at an early age can get shut down. I remember I was in second grade and we were working on something. And a friend of mine, I still remember her name was Karen, she was using puff paint. And I asked the teacher if I could use the puff paint. And I mean, I remember to a T where I was standing in my second grade classroom. And she looked at me and she's like, yeah, you're not good with things like that.
What?
And I remember thinking, ooh, like now looking back on it, I mean, she was just a teacher probably having a bad day. She was overwhelmed. I mean, who gives second graders like containers of puffy paint anyways, you know, in the middle of like a regular schoolroom, not an art room. But I still remember that to this day as something that was just like, yo, you're not good at that. And like, it still takes me moments where I'm like, should I be running a clothing company? I'm not good with puff paint. I mean, it's so funny how like so early on we can squash creativity. And it becomes, I feel like, such a lifeline later in life when you do want to cultivate your confidence or do want to feel like, you know, you're contributing to, you know, society and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever felt that at all.
You saying that like totally brings me back to like two instances of that.
Yeah.
Like the first was like, okay, so apart from drawing, I also really like singing and songwriting. And I remember like I was in daycare and I was getting picked up, and the woman who always drove was like obsessed with Celine Dion, and like. So she was like playing, I think the song was Treat Her Like a Lady. And I was like singing along to it. I'm like 8 years old. And she paused it at some point and I kept singing and didn't realize it. And then like the woman at my school turns around and she's like, yeah, you'll never be as good as Celine Dion. And I was like, I think even at 8, I was like, why would you say that?
Why would you ever say that?
Yeah. And like, of course I'm not as good as Celine Dion, but that doesn't mean I'm not like a good singer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then
do you ever remember those moments as adults? Like, do you laugh at it or do you say like, I mean, I'm never going to be as good as Celine.
See that, like, I think, okay, so that one doesn't bother me as much because, like, duh, of course I'm not going to be as good as Celine Dion, like, no duh. But, like, I'm not aiming for that. But one that does bother me still is when I was 18, I took a songwriting class my freshman year of college, and I had my songwriting teacher, literally, I will never forget, like, I played a song, and he looked at me kind of strange, like, and he just goes, you know, your music, your lyrics, it's kind of like a baby being born without a heart. I was like, what does that even mean?
Oh
but
my
it
gosh.
crushed me. And honestly, I didn't write music. Like the last time I wrote music, like there was years, I think it was almost like 10 years. I didn't write like music anymore. And like it was like a last year, like, during, like, I wrote a song like during COVID, and that was like the next time I actually wrote something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you like how, I mean, I don't know. It's crazy because you get there and it's such an important part, whether it's in school and you're getting a grade on it or whether it's, you know, you're drawing a picture for your mom. Like there's such a sense of, I know I keep coming back to this, but like vulnerability and exposure and like, this is something I've created.
Yeah.
And I know Lindy and I talk about it a lot. And she says her skin's gotten a lot tougher since she's designed clothes for us for multiple years. But at the very beginning of it, I mean, thankfully, if anybody knows kind of the history of Latched Mama, I quote unquote designed clothes, which was like literally drawing pictures and trying to explain to them to our manufacturers. And I was the face and I was the model and I was like everything for the first, 2 to 3 years of the company. So by the time I started introducing others to the process and opening them up to the world of social media and saying, hi, I want you to put your ideas out there and I want you to put your creativity and your bodies and your faces out there. At that point, I had become a little bit more hardened to it and was able, or I am able to kind of walk people through it a little bit more. But I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard to watch Lindy sometimes now say like, I have a thick skin to it, knowing that like it still hurts us all. Like it still hurts us all when people not only give like the feedback, I think part is okay, especially when you're selling something or you're trying to get a grade on something or something like that. But like the idea that people sometimes lose the fact that anytime something creative is done, you're sharing a part of yourself with other people, and whether it's at age 4 or 5 or 6 or age 20 or age 40 now running a company, there's such a moment of confidence that comes along with it, but at the same time vulnerability and exposure to yourself. So
what one great thing about being here is, one thing I've noticed is, like with Lindy, like we're also like protective of her.
Yeah.
So like when someone like craps on some stupid thing, we're like, what are you talking about? Like Lindy's amazing.
Yeah. It's so funny. And she's grown so much too. And I think we all grow through feedback, especially when, like I said, it's a job. Like I'm not comparing like, you drawing a picture that's from your heart or Lindy designing something, to like the idea that we're trying to make a product for consumption. You're trying to draw pictures that connect with people online, and Lindy's trying to design clothes. But yeah, I mean, we're super protective of her just because we're close enough with her that we realize that the creative aspect of what she does or what you do or what I do, or I mean, so many people, contribute creatively. Creatively. I'm really pregnant. So
no, that's
in case nobody knew, like my brain is now just housing a human being and it's not worrying about I say things. But I think that a lot of it is lost on the fact that like still everything is coming from, a place of, contribution. It's like a gift. I think it's every time we draw something or make something or share something, we get something out of it. But at the same time, when you hand it to other people, we have to hand it in a way that's, that's soft and stuff,
sometimes like I wish that like they could see like, I wish people could see like the heart that goes into things. Like I remember there's been so many times, like even like with Lindy, where when we were coming into the office before COVID, like more, I would actually get to see more of her process, like her talking to you, and I would just see like how she'd be like, oh, she just puts so much like thought into things, like little things, like okay, like. If a mom is struggling with this, like I want to create this design to help her with this or make her feel beautiful because of this. Yeah. And like, so I think that's kind of part of why we're so like protective of each other. And I've noticed she'll do it with me, like whenever like maybe like somebody like says something mean like on one of my drawings, like she'll like slack me and be like, Lilah, you're so talented and stuff. And I'm like, thank you, Lindy.
But it just shows the way that we can be so much more supportive in the sense that like we all are creative. Every single human being on this planet is putting some sort of themselves out there. Yes. And if we're not, I can tell you that it's like the secret to happiness and fulfillment. Yeah. Like it's find some place to be creative. And when you do it and when you decide then to go share it with people, I think that especially in the mom space, we need to be receptive and we need to be celebratory and we need to say, hey, this is awesome that you found your way here. I think it's great that creative things are part of your life. I don't know. Like there's just such an element of exposure that comes along with it that I think that we need to not forget as human beings.
Yeah.
So.
And there was one thing I really wanted to make sure I brought up is that like creativity doesn't have to be like big.
Uh-huh.
Like I do the graphic design. It doesn't have to look like that. It
Yep.
doesn't have to be like illustrating like a huge picture.
Yep.
Like we talked about like kind of feeling like you lose it like when you become a mom, and I definitely went through that. And like going through a phase where I felt like like I'd lost my identity as Lilah, and that all I was Henry's mom.
Yep. Which happens to so many people.
Yeah. So I remember thinking like, I just need to do something small. And for me, it started off as just like journaling. Yep. And there would be days when I wouldn't feel like writing 3 pages. So there, like looking back, I'll look at my journal from like 3 years ago, and it would be Henry'd be like completely asleep, and I would be like have like a lamp on and like write like, I am totally exhausted today. I haven't slept for like 36 hours. Henry puked on me today. Hope things are better tomorrow. And it can be that simple.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? You'll look back and be like, wow, like you'll appreciate that you wrote like, oh, my son barfed on me today.
Absolutely. And that you took the time for yourself to literally find some way to put your words and your thoughts into something.
Yeah, like it can be so simple. It can be scrapbooking, that
can be doodling.
Yeah.
It can be like
bullet journaling.
Yeah. it can be taking a shower and putting an outfit together.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be so many different things. And, people will reach out in the group and be like, I feel great today. Like, look at the outfit I put together. Or I feel great today. I don't know why. Like I went and I bought myself flowers. Like all of that is creative. Like all of that is bringing something else to your life that may be missing. But I mean, I think it's true. I think we lose a lot of ourselves on the other side of motherhood. And I don't think our first place is also, sleep and help and food and all of that stuff, which I think is very important. But I think we also need to really, really consider where those creative places are as well that we can find, because it opens up a whole nother part of kind of your psyche and your confidence and stuff.
Yeah. I was like listening to a podcast. I don't remember what it was about, but they were talking about just like human needs. Like once your basic needs are covered, like there is like, that's like kind of the next step for happiness. And like is like finding like a purpose or creating something, some sort of hobby. So that's one of the things I struggle with is like I will talk to I'll encounter people who, when they find out what I do, they're like, how do you have time to do that as like a mom? Like I just don't have that time. And that kind of breaks my heart because I feel like at least for me, I feel like I have to make it kind of a priority, because if I'm not being creative in some fashion, like I'm not my best self, so I don't feel like I'm able to like show Henry like or my husband like my best self, because that's actually a part of parenting, is taking care of yourself. And if I don't do that, if I'm not, then what Henry sees is an unhappy mother, and that's the last thing I want. And I think one thing that's also great about doing things for yourself in that way, like, when Henry sees me draw, like he wants to try it, or he, and that leads him on to something that he wants to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what I'm doing. Like my husband's also really creative. Like he, I
love Jared.
He plays. Okay. So he's really into Warhammer. Okay. And so what he does is,
what is that? Is that a video game?
It's like a tabletop, like
Dungeons and Dragons.
Like there's a story element to it, but it's like, it's this like world, it's supposed to be like in the future. Okay. And oh my goodness, I'm gonna butcher this, and his friends are gonna be like, Lilah, you told the story wrong. But yeah, it's like supposed to take place in the future, and there's like,
does it just say set up on a tabletop?
Yeah, like he builds.
And Henry doesn't touch it.
Oh, he does. That's what I'm saying. It's like he builds, like Jared will build terrain, and and he actually has to build up the the little
Wow.
characters, and he
Okay.
paints them. He actually knows like more about color theory than I do. Like there's been
Wow.
times I've been like coloring and I'd be like, honey, like I'm really struggling to make this skin tone look real. And he's like, well, you got to get the undertones. And like, I'll go to
That's
Jared.
fascinating.
Yeah, he's really good at it. And then Henry like loves it. And so Jared has ones that he'll let Henry play with.
Yeah, okay.
And like it was really cute. Like the other day, like he'll create these little stories with it. And if Jared didn't do that, then Henry wouldn't have like see these like the terrain and like these little characters and then create little stories with it. And so it like I don't know, like I guess the best way I can say is that like creativity like creates more creativity.
Absolutely.
or like gives birth to more creativity because you're inadvertently going to be inspired by other people's creativity. And not to say that like Jared and I do anything super profound or anything, but we try to like be ourselves and do the things that we love because we know that it will inspire Henry to be like, okay, it's okay for me to do the things that I love.
I've learned personally, because this has been like, a 6-year journey now with Latched Mama, that like when I feel like I'm in a funk or when I feel like things just aren't great, if I make sure I come into the office or I make sure that I write copy or I make sure that I go back to our why or I go visit the group and tell them what's happening in my life, or I find a way to insert my creativity back in here because the machine is so big and wonderful and full of so many awesome people who give themselves to me every day and the brand, that sometimes my creativity isn't needed anymore. And I'll look at Lindy and be like, I need a design. Show me swatches. Like, let's pick stuff out. Because sometimes, although this is my creation and, my place that I set up to be able to be creative, sometimes I forget to do it. And it's so interesting what after a day in the office, especially now on the other side of COVID, how I feel versus if I'm at home or, really not trying to leave that kind of really safe space and actually put myself out there.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't have to be like, just like what you just said, like, it doesn't have to be, a company or clothing or whatever. It literally can be just going on Pinterest and finding a new recipe for dinner.
Yeah.
Like that is one of my favorite things, is turning up the music and like literally, now standing barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, but just making a new recipe. And I don't even care if my kids eat it. Like, it is what it is, but just literally trying to find a way to just do something new and to do something different. And, I challenge everybody out there to go and to try and think of it differently. Don't think of yourself as that, as I just said, my, second grade self who's not good with puff paint. Like, let go of all of that stuff and go out and just try something new.
Yeah. Like, it's, not even just moms. Like, I would encourage your partners to do it too. Cause like my husband, like he's like during COVID, he's learned how to mix drinks. He's learned how to cook.
It's
and
awesome.
so like every day he's like, hey babe, can you try this?
Awesome. It's just finding another hobby. Like, it's finding something to do that, is great. Like, I've always watched my sister-in-law and I love this about her, but anytime that she pulls the sidewalk chalk out for the kids, and she draws and she's great with it.
Yeah.
But she'll just draw a beautiful picture right next to the kids. Like, she'll just pick up a piece of chalk too. And I know it's probably something she does because it brings her joy, but it's gorgeous, whatever she comes up with. And it's so cool. It's just taking those extra 5 minutes to kind of do something for yourself and see what it feels like on the other side.
Yeah. And just not having, and I don't know, like, not putting so much pressure on yourself to like,
absolutely.
Because that's something I struggled with. And that's probably why I didn't write songs for 10 years, because I had this, like, I'd like force myself to, or like I told myself, if it's not perfect, then it's not good enough for me to even like put out or even create. Like, I didn't want to do something if I didn't know it was going to be great. And that's just so silly, because the only way you're going to be great is if you practice. Absolutely. Like, that whole like practice makes perfect is really like a true thing. You got to like, you have to do like a bunch of like really crappy versions of things before you become great.
And I think we've also become a society that everything we do has to be Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook worthy. Like, absolutely not. Like, it doesn't have to be. Like, let the kids pour the sprinkles all over the funfetti cake if that's what their sibling wants for their birthday. And it may not be, something you can throw on Instagram because it's a beautiful, cake, but it's where they're finding their creativity too.
Yeah.
So
like last night I got my function of beauty. I got sucked into that. Function
What is
of
that?
It's okay. So it's like you create, like you customize your own shampoo.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was
Cool.
all
That's
all the
fancy.
influencers
We use
are
Suave
doing
in our
it.
house.
Yes.
99-cent Walmart Suave.
That's probably what I like. Even my husband's like, honey, why are you still buying this? But they send you like stickers to decorate your
Seriously?
yes. And like last night I was like, here you go, Henry.
Wow.
And so Henry was so excited. He's like, Mommy, look, I put like, and he would like tell me what everything was, like, Mommy, this is a pineapple. And he'd like put it on there.
So cute.
And so it was actually, that was one of, see, this is, you know, creativity also helps with parenting because of that, Jared and I were able to eat dinner in peace.
There you
And
go.
Henry just sat there happy as
Absolutely.
a clam, putting stickers on my shampoo
Yeah,
bottle.
I may or may not have watched a child draw on a wall so I could eat with 2
There
hands
you go.
before.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Embrace it. Embrace it where it's at.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Anybody, please reach out if you guys have any questions, and make it happen. Go do something that you haven't done in a while that brings you joy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.